silent theatre of the mind. A story is always playing, a relentless, unceasing drama with you as its solitary audience. Have you ever noticed how the quietest moments of your life, the instant before sleep, the stillness of an early morning, are often the loudest? It is in those moments of solitude that the true nature of the mind is revealed. A constant, chaotic symphony of worries, memories, and future plans. It is the ego, forever narrating, forever commenting, forever trying to make sense of the world by creating a story about it. And it is this very story, this relentless stream of inner chatter, that robs us of our peace, our sleep, and our presence. What if the peace you are searching for is not found by adding anything, but by letting go? What if the solution isn't to silence the chatter, but to change your relationship to it? This is the central paradox of a quiet mind. You cannot fight the noise and expect to find silence. You can only observe it, understand it, and in doing so, watch it soften and fade into the background. A person often believes that if they could just solve all their problems, the mind would finally be quiet. But this is the mind's cleverest trick. The mind creates problems in order to have something to do, something to worry about. The mind's purpose is to think, to plan, to survive. But we are not our minds. We are the awareness of our minds. We are the vast, open sky in which the clouds of thought drift. And so, this journey is not about trying to empty your mind, for that is an impossible task. It is about learning to observe the mind's contents without becoming entangled in them. It is about understanding the stories we tell ourselves and why we tell them. We will explore ancient wisdom that teaches us to let go of the past and not anticipate the future. We will touch upon the psychological shadows we carry, the unhealed parts of ourselves that scream for attention and create so much of our anxiety. We will discover the simple yet profound truth that so much of our suffering comes not from what happens to us, but from our reaction to it. So, find your comfortable space. Allow your body to settle. Take a slow, deep breath. And as you exhale, let the outer world fade. Let this moment be a doorway, and allow this journey to begin. There once was a young monk who came to his master, complaining about his mind. "Master," he said, "my thoughts are like 1,000 monkeys screeching in a tree. They leap and swing and will not be still. How can I quiet them?" The master simply nodded and pointed to a wide, flowing river. "Sit by that river," he instructed, "and watch. Do not fight the monkeys. Watch the river instead." The monk did as he was told. He sat on the bank and watched the water flow by, carrying with it leaves, twigs, and sometimes a stray flower. He realized that the river was not trying to hold on to anything. It simply flowed, and whatever was in it passed. When a thought would arise in his mind, a worry about a chore, a memory of a past mistake, he would gently turn his attention back to the river. He began to see his thoughts not as screeching monkeys to be wrestled with, but as leaves and twigs floating on the current of his awareness. He didn't have to grab them, inspect them, or throw them away. He just let them go. This story points to a core Zen teaching, the concept of the monkey mind and the practice of non-attachment. The mind is a tool for thinking, and thoughts will naturally arise. The mistake a person makes is believing they must control or suppress these thoughts. The Stoics would agree, arguing that we should focus on what is within our control, and our thoughts themselves are often not. We can't stop them from appearing, but we can control our reaction to them. We can control whether we grab onto that thought leaf, analyze it, and build a whole story around it, or whether we simply observe it and allow it to continue on its way. The suffering comes not from the thought itself, but from the clinging to it, the anxiety, the frustration, the feeling of being overwhelmed. That is the result of wrestling with the monkeys. In your own life, this ancient wisdom is profoundly practical. Consider the moment you open your phone and see a notification from social media. A thought instantly appears, a feeling of inadequacy, a memory of a past argument, a worry about a future event. This thought is a leaf on the river. The untrained mind grabs it, turns it over, and begins to build a whole new stream of anxiety. You start a mental debate with someone who isn't there, or you compare your life to a curated image. But what if you simply saw that thought as a fleeting event? What if you practice simply noticing the feeling? A thought of comparison is here, and then gently, without judgment, let it float on by. This is the practice. It's not about achieving a perfectly silent mind, but about changing your relationship to the noise. It is the beginning of reclaiming your peace. A long time ago, a wise master lived in a small hut. One evening, a student came to him, distressed. "Master," he said, "I am tormented by a shadow. In the daytime, it follows me, mocking my every move. At night, it becomes a monster in my dreams. I try to outrun it, to hide from it, but it is always there." The master listened quietly. He then lit a simple lantern and placed it on the floor between them. The student watched as a shadow appeared on the wall, cast by his own body. It was a distorted, frightening shape. "Look closely," the master said. "The shadow is a part of you, created by the very light that illuminates you. You cannot outrun it because it is not real. It is a lack of light, a place where the light of the lantern cannot reach. The more you fight it, the bigger it seems to become." The master then instructed the student to turn and face the lantern directly. As the student did, the shadow disappeared completely, merging with his own body. "Do not fear the darkness," the master said. "Turn toward the light that creates it." This parable is a powerful metaphor for the concept of the shadow self, a key idea in both Zen and modern psychology. The shadow is a term for the parts of ourselves we have rejected, the traits we deem unacceptable, shameful, or weak. These could be feelings of anger, jealousy, or vulnerability. A person spends so much energy trying to outrun or hide these parts of themselves, just like the student with his shadow. But the more we repress them, the more they grow in power, influencing our lives in subtle and destructive ways. The anger we refuse to acknowledge becomes a short temper with a loved one. The fear of failure we bury becomes a crippling anxiety that prevents us from taking risks. The shame we hold on to manifests as a constant need for external validation. This ancient wisdom connects directly to the modern-day task of shadow work. You are often told to be positive, to think happy thoughts. But this is like the student trying to outrun his shadow. It only pushes the darkness deeper into the subconscious. The true work is not to eliminate the shadow, but to acknowledge it. When a wave of self-doubt washes over you, the wise person doesn't say, "I am a failure." They might say, Self-doubt is here. I see it. I recognize this feeling. By bringing these feelings out of the darkness and into the light of your awareness, they lose their power. You are not your feelings. You are the one who notices the feelings. You do not have to identify with the shame, the fear, or the anger. You can simply turn and face the light of your own awareness. And in that simple act, the tormenting shadow begins to fade. An old story tells of a young, arrogant scholar who came to a Zen master to learn about enlightenment. The scholar, full of his own knowledge, spoke endlessly of philosophical concepts and ancient texts, trying to impress the master with his intellect. The master listened patiently, but said nothing. Finally, he invited the scholar to tea. He began to pour hot tea into the scholar's cup. He poured, and the cup quickly filled to the brim. But the master continued to pour, and the tea began to overflow, spilling onto the table and splashing the scholar's robes. "Stop," the scholar cried out, jumping to his feet. "The cup is full. Nothing more can get in." The master simply stopped pouring and looked at the scholar. "Your mind," he said gently, "is like this cup. It is already full of your own ideas, opinions, and assumptions. How can I possibly show you anything new until you first empty your cup?" This is a profound teaching that resonates deeply with both Zen and Stoic philosophy. Before a person can learn or grow, they must first create space. The Stoics spoke of the importance of recognizing our preconceived notions and biases, the stories we tell ourselves about how the world should be. These stories, which are often deeply held and unconsciously defended, prevent us from seeing the world as it actually is. They are the tea that fills our cup, leaving no room for a fresh perspective. When a difficult situation arises at work, a person often reacts based on their full cup. "This is unfair. They don't respect me. I am being wronged." This reaction is not a response to the reality of the situation, but to the story that is already overflowing in the mind. The modern application of this wisdom is to practice the art of emptying the cup. This doesn't mean becoming empty-headed or naive. It means approaching each moment with a beginner's mind, a fresh perspective. Before you react to a colleague's comment or to a partner's tone of voice, can you pause and ask yourself, what if I don't know the full story here? What if my first reaction is based on an old assumption? This practice of pausing, of creating a tiny space before you react, allows you to put down the heavy cup of your own beliefs for just a moment. It allows you to see the situation with clarity, not through the distorting lens of your past experiences. The greatest freedom is not found in having all the answers, but in realizing that you don't need them. It is found in the quiet, spacious confidence that comes from a mind that is open, not full. Near the edge of an ancient forest, there stood a magnificent willow tree. It was not like the other trees. It did not grow straight and tall to reach for the sun. Instead, its trunk was gnarled and twisted, and its branches hung low, swaying gently with every breeze. One stormy night, the wind howled and raged, snapping the mighty oaks and pines that stood rigid and firm. Their trunks, unable to bend, cracked under the immense pressure. But the willow, with its flexible, yielding branches, simply bowed low to the ground. It bent with the force of the wind, absorbing its power instead of resisting it. When the sun rose the next morning, The forest floor was littered with fallen wood, but the willow stood unharmed, its branches slowly rising back to their graceful position. This simple story is a beautiful illustration of the principle of impermanence and non-resistance, a cornerstone of Zen and Stoic thought. A person's mind, like the oak, often wants to stand firm against the storms of life. A difficult emotion, a painful memory, a frustrating circumstance, we brace against it, tighten our grip, and fight. We try to control the uncontrollable. The Stoics understood that this resistance is the true source of our suffering. The storm of life is a natural phenomenon. It is our mental fight against the storm that drains our energy and ultimately breaks us. The willow, however, teaches a different way. It doesn't deny the storm. It accepts it. It bends. It yields. It understands that this moment, with all its fury, is not forever. It is an ever-changing force, a fleeting moment in the long life of the tree. In your own life, this means learning to bow to the storm. When you feel a wave of anxiety, the impulse is to resist it, to push it away. This is the mind's reflex. But what if, instead, you simply noticed its presence? You can say to yourself, anxiety is here. You don't have to welcome it, but you don't have to fight it either. By simply acknowledging it without resistance, you create a space for it to pass. The emotion, like the storm, is a passing event. It is impermanent. By not clinging to the need for things to be different, by not fighting reality as it is, you conserve your energy and find a surprising strength. The true power is not in the rigid refusal to bend, but in the supple wisdom to yield, trusting that, like the willow, you will rise again when the storm has passed. A student once asked a Zen master, "What is the sound of a single leaf falling?" The master simply smiled and said nothing. Confused, the student returned to his home and spent weeks contemplating the question, trying to hear this impossible sound. He sat in a quiet garden, his mind straining for any faint whisper, but heard nothing. Exhausted, he finally gave up and simply began to tend to the garden, raking leaves and watering the plants. One afternoon, as he was gently sweeping the path, he saw a single autumn leaf detach from a branch and spiral silently to the ground. As it landed, a small, nearly imperceptible puff of dust rose from the earth. He was not listening for a sound. He was simply present enough to perceive the entirety of the moment, the motion, the light, the silence, the subtle disturbance. He realized the question wasn't about hearing a sound, but about being so completely aware that even the most silent event could be perceived in all its fullness. This story reveals a core distinction between hearing and listening, between seeing and perceiving. The mind is a machine built for analysis and commentary. When a person hears a sound, the mind instantly labels it. That's a car horn. That's my colleague's voice. That's a bird. The Stoics would call this an impression, a raw sensory input. The mind, however, immediately adds its own story and judgment to it. This is the difference between an impression and an assent. It is what creates the noise in your head. When a person is truly present, however, they are not just hearing, they are listening with their entire being. They are not just seeing, they are perceiving. The student was able to perceive the sound of the leaf falling not with his ears, but with his total awareness, because he had stopped trying so hard to find an answer. He had let go of the very expectation that was blocking his perception. In a modern, technology-driven life, the mind is always in a state of frantic commentary. It is constantly labeling, judging, and anticipating. This creates a psychological distance between you and the actual moment. When you are listening to a loved one speak, is your mind truly present, or is it already formulating your reply? When you are walking outside, are you seeing the actual light and shadow on the leaves, or are you lost in thought? The practice here is simple. For a few moments, intentionally turn off the commentary. You can sit with your eyes closed and listen to the sounds around you without labeling them. Just let the sound be. The practice is not about finding silence in the world, but about finding the silence within you that can simply perceive the world as it is, without the mind's endless chatter. Inside a grand old house, there was a room that had been forgotten. The door was always closed, the curtains drawn, and years of dust had settled on everything. The owners of the house knew the room was there, and sometimes a stray memory or a pang of sadness would surface, reminding them of it. But they never opened the door. They were afraid of what they might find. They imagined the room was full of monsters, cobwebs, and ghosts from the past, so they simply chose to ignore it, even though its presence haunted the entire house. It was not until a wise elder visited and, with a gentle hand, simply opened the door that the owners realized the truth. The room was not full of monsters, but of old, broken toys and faded photographs, relics of a past that simply needed to be acknowledged and put away with gentle care, not feared. This hidden room is a powerful metaphor for the unhealed parts of us, the inner child, or the past trauma we've locked away. A person often carries old hurts, past disappointments, and unresolved emotions from their childhood into their adult life. These are not monsters. They are the broken toys and faded photographs of our past. They are the feelings of not being good enough, the fears of abandonment, or the shame of a past mistake. The mind, in its attempt to protect us, closes the door on these experiences. But just like the forgotten room, these unresolved feelings continue to cast a shadow on our present. They influence our reactions, our relationships, and our sense of self-worth. When a simple, small criticism triggers a disproportionate reaction of anger or sadness, it is often not the adult self reacting, but the inner child whose room has just been disturbed. The modern application of this ancient wisdom is to practice opening the door. This does not mean you have to relive the past with pain and intensity. It means shining a light of awareness on it. It means acknowledging to yourself, this feeling of sadness I'm experiencing right now is not about this conversation. It's an echo from a very old place inside me. You don't have to fix the past. You just have to acknowledge it with compassion. You can simply sit with that feeling, that old photograph, and offer it a quiet, gentle acceptance. You can say, "Hello, sadness. I see you. You are here because of something that happened a long time ago. It's okay. You can be here for a moment." This simple act of turning toward your own past with kindness rather than fear is the first step toward healing and peace. In ancient China, there was a well-known story about a fisherman who was enjoying a peaceful afternoon on a lake. He had closed his eyes, lulled by the gentle rocking of his boat. Suddenly, another boat, drifting with the current, bumped into his. The fisherman's eyes shot open, and he immediately felt a surge of anger. He was about to shout at the person in the other boat for their carelessness when he looked up and saw that the boat was empty. There was no one there to be angry at. His anger, which had flared up so quickly, dissolved just as fast. The masterless boat taught him a profound lesson, that his anger had not been caused by the other boat, but by the assumption that there was a careless person in it. The suffering came not from the event, but from the story he had attached to it. This simple tale is a perfect illustration of the Zen concept of the empty boat. A person's mind, when it is truly still, is like an empty boat. It does not carry the weight of expectation or judgment. When another boat, an external event, a cutting remark, an unexpected frustration bumps into it, the empty boat simply receives the impact without protest. It doesn't take the collision personally. The ego, on the other hand, is a boat with a full crew. It is filled with a sense of self, a list of personal grievances, and a deep-seated need to be right. When the empty boat of life collides with it, the ego instantly creates a story. I have been wronged. They did this to me on purpose. This is so unfair. This is the source of all suffering. The Stoics would agree, teaching that we are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. A hurtful word is just a sound. Our pain comes from our judgment that the word is an insult to our self-worth. The modern application is to begin to see every irritating or frustrating moment as an empty boat. When you receive a blunt email, your first impulse is to fill the other boat with a driver. This person is rude. They don't respect me. But what if you paused for a moment and considered that the other person's boat might simply be empty? Perhaps they are stressed, rushing, or just having a bad day, and their actions had nothing to do with you. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you take back your power. By not taking every perceived slight personally, you stop giving away your peace. The empty boat allows you to receive the world as it is, without the need to fill it with your own drama. It is a profound act of non-reaction, an inner fortress of peace that cannot be breached by the carelessness of others. The Zen masters often speak of the ego as a complex knot in a rope. The rope itself is perfect, a continuous, seamless fiber of pure existence. But over a lifetime, a person's mind begins to twist and loop, tying itself into a tangled knot of self-importance, fear, and self-doubt. The ego is this knot. It is not an entity to be destroyed. It is simply a confused state of the rope. It is the accumulation of every story you have ever told yourself about who you are, what you are worth, and what you need to be happy. This knot desperately tries to defend its shape, clinging to its past and worrying about its future. It believes it is a separate, solid thing. It is the part of you that takes offense, that needs to be right, and that feels the sting of rejection. And in its frantic struggle to maintain its form, it tightens itself, creating immense psychological and emotional pain. This metaphor helps us understand the ego's role in our modern lives. The ego is the voice that tells you that your worth is tied to your career, your possessions, or your social status. It is the part of you that feels a deep need to prove itself to others, to win every argument, and to control every outcome. The Stoics also recognize this fundamental flaw in human nature, teaching that the path to peace is to recognize what is truly within our control. our own thoughts and actions, and what is not, which is everything else. The ego, however, is a master of trying to control the uncontrollable. It believes that if it could just arrange the outside world perfectly, then it would finally be safe. But the more it tries to tighten its grip, the more it creates a sense of separation and loneliness. It is a prison built from the threads of your own identity. The practice is not to cut the knot, for that would be impossible. The rope is one piece. Instead, the practice is to gently observe the knot, to notice when the ego is tightening its grip, to recognize when you are becoming emotionally entangled in a story that is simply not true. You can ask yourself, is this feeling I'm having about being right or about the truth? Is this action I'm about to take for my own peace or to defend the knot? By simply observing the knot without judgment, you begin to loosen it. You see that the intricate twists and turns are not a solid object, but a collection of thoughts, fears, and memories. And as you stop giving the knot your energy, as you stop believing its stories, it begins to unravel on its own, revealing the pure, unbroken rope that has been there all along. Far away, in a forgotten corner of a forest, there was an ancient, crooked tree. Its branches were so gnarled and twisted that they were useless for building. No one could make a straight beam or a sturdy table from its wood. Its trunk was so thick and misshapen that it could not be carved into anything of beauty. For generations, the loggers came and went, cutting down the tall, straight, and useful trees, but they always left this old tree alone. It is useless, they would say, and move on. Year after year, the tree remained, weathering storms and basking in the sun, and because it was useless, it was never cut down. Its life was a long, peaceful testament to the freedom of not being needed, of not having to serve a purpose. It simply existed in all its crooked glory, a quiet monument to the beauty of being. This powerful story speaks to the Zen concept of the useless tree and its connection to our sense of self-worth. In modern life, a person's worth is often measured by their usefulness, by their productivity, their achievements, their status. The ego thrives on this measurement, constantly striving to be the straightest, most perfect tree in the forest. It tells you that your value is tied to your job title, your bank account, your ability to please others. And in this endless pursuit of usefulness, a person often forgets to simply be. They become so focused on what they can produce that they lose touch with their own inherent value. The more we try to be useful, the more we make ourselves vulnerable to the opinions of others, to the fear of failure, and to the crippling anxiety of not being enough. This is where true freedom lies. The practice is to reconnect with your own inner useless tree. It means recognizing that your worth is not something that can be earned or lost. It is not a prize to be won. It is a given. You are not a human doing. You are a human being. This doesn't mean you stop striving for personal growth or helping others. It simply means that your drive comes from a place of joy and purpose, not from a place of fear or a need for validation. It is the deep, quiet knowledge that even if you never accomplished another thing, you would still be perfectly whole, perfectly worthy, and perfectly deserving of peace. When you touch this feeling, the endless commentary of the mind begins to lose its power, because the chatter is all about being useful, being worthy, being enough. And when you know deep down that you already are, the noise simply fades. So, with all the stories and teachings now resting within you, it is time to turn your attention inward to the most silent place of all. The mind, with all its narratives and commentary, is like the surface of a great ocean, ever changing, sometimes still, sometimes full of waves. But beneath the surface, there is an immense, unchanging depth, a stillness that has always been there waiting. This deep ocean of peace is your true nature. It is not something you have to create or earn. It is something you simply have to remember. As you lie here, feel your body. Let it become heavy and soft. Let it sink into the surface below you. This body, this breath, is always in the present moment, always here. Only the mind travels to the past, to the future. But you, the quiet awareness behind the mind, are not a traveler. You are home. You are the stillness that notices the thoughts, the silence that notices the sounds. The peace you are seeking is not a destination. It is the very ground you are standing on. Let go of the need to be a good meditator or to have a perfectly silent mind. Let go of the need for any outcome at all. Your only task now is to simply rest in the knowledge that you are whole, you are worthy, and you are already home. You are the sky, and the thoughts are just clouds passing through. You are the lake, and the feelings are just ripples on the surface. And at this very moment, in this profound and gentle stillness, you are finally free from the need to be anything other than what you are. The peace you are searching for is the peace that is searching for you.